Just this past year, I've been inside 7 coaching businesses that at some point got stuck between 10 to 30 grand per month. These ones over here. And not surprisingly, all of them had the exact same 3 problems. And by the way, these coaching businesses were in different niches as well. Like some of them were study coaches, some Airbnb, sales, and even relationship coaches. And they had offers of different sizes. Some of them sold a 2K offer, some an 8K offer. And they had different audiences, some with 100 followers, with a couple hundred, and some with a couple 100,000, right? So different audience sizes. And even the levels of team differed in these coaching businesses. Some had setters, others had closers. Yeah, it's very weird to have a closer at 30 grand per month. Like, don't do that. Like, you don't need one, just close yourself. But anyways, some of them did, right? And some of them were doing everything by themselves, like you probably should at 10K per month. But anyways, they were stuck at this level, and every single one of them had the same exact problems. And these were not content problems. These were not lead problems. And these were also not offer problems. These were operational problems. And I know that's probably not what you want to hear because you've spent the last 12 months or however long buying courses about content strategy, hook writing, VSL structure, and probably none of it has moved your revenue in any meaningful way or any way that you actually want it to. So now you're probably sitting here watching this video and thinking that you need better content, a better funnel, or different offer maybe, like selling to a different ICP, or more ads budget. But the reality is, after working with these 7 businesses one-on-one, is that you probably don't, because you probably have an operational problem like all of these businesses that I've just shown you. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what these 3 problems are, why they show up in every coaching business at your level, and what it actually takes to fix them for good. And I'm going to walk you through real situations from businesses I've worked inside, no names, but situations you're going to recognize because you're probably living in one of them right now. So if you're making 10 to 30 grand a month with a high ticket coaching offer and you feel like you're doing everything right, but something still isn't compounding, then this video was made specifically for you. So take notes and let's get straight into it. Let's start with why the coaches who study the most are actually the hardest to scale. Whenever I'm working with these people, sometimes they are a nightmare. Other times it's just a little bit more difficult than with other coaches, but these are the exact reasons why. Before I get into the 3 problems, I need to say something that might be uncomfortable, because the coaches, as I've mentioned, I've had the hardest time helping are not the ones who don't know anything. They're the ones who know everything. And I mean seriously, right? Like, these are the coaches who have been through 3 masterminds, who can recite Alex Hormozi frameworks from memory, probably have a Notion dashboard with 47 pages of strategy. And those are often the hardest clients to work with. Not because they're necessarily bad people, but they have gotten addicted with consuming knowledge, with knowing more. But they have forgotten about the very thing that uses that knowledge: execution. And that confusion is costing them not only 20 grand a month, but sometimes 50 to 100 grand a month at least. So I worked with this sales coach last year and he was doing 15 grand a month, solid offer, 2.8K. He was genuinely delivering good transformations and he had a setter as well and some organic content that was working. And at that point, he had invested 5 figures into courses and coaching in the previous year. But then I asked him one question. I asked him, who is checking whether any of this is actually being executed to the standard that you have just described to me? And he was just looking at me like, what are you talking about? The answer was nobody. His setter was using a DM script he'd written 6 months ago and it hadn't been reviewed since. And his content was going out, but nobody was really tracking which posts work and were generating leads and which posts were just an absolute waste of time. And also his close rate had been going up and down for 3 months at that point, but he did not know the exact number, so we couldn't really improve anything, right? So this is a good counterexample from John over here, but the fact was that he had the knowledge, he had the strategy, he had the people, but what he didn't have was anyone holding the standard. So there are 3 main problems that in these coaching businesses came up. And the number one, quite frankly, the most important one, is no one holding the standard, no one actually leading the business. Everyone wants to be this online coach and build a coaching business, but no one's willing to lead the company. Everyone wants to talk about their offers, funnels, and content strategy, but nobody wants to talk about operational standards, like how you need to execute in order to make stuff work in the first place. Operational standards, or the lack of them, are what separate a 5K per month business from a 30K per month business more than anything else. So let's say you hire a setter, right? Like you train them, you give them a script, you do a few role play sessions even, and you send them straight into your DMs. Month one, they perform pretty well, 30 calls, you're happy. Month two, they only book 20 calls and you are sort of like starting to wonder what is going on. And if at month three they're still on board, I would highly doubt that. I'm pretty sure you have either fired them or they have left the offer. But let's say that they book just 7 calls and you jump back in, do a few more training sessions, if even, and they haven't left the offer yet. Numbers go up, back up briefly, but then drop again. Like, why is that? Why does that happening? It's actually happening because the setter is drifting, not really maliciously, not because they have a malintent towards you, but it's because they're not being held to a specific measurable standard. They don't have clear KPIs. They don't know their exact conversation to call rate. They don't know which opener is converting versus which one isn't. And they also don't have a weekly review where someone looks at their numbers, identifies the drop, and corrects it before it becomes a pattern. And the problem is that you're not managing performance. You're reacting to results. And this pattern repeats across every single role, every single process in your business at this level. Like in the content team, the mistake is that nobody is tracking which content is generating DMs versus which content is just getting likes and just making you look nice. On the delivery side, same thing. Nobody is tracking client results systematically so that you can improve your delivery and improve what your business actually does. Deliver a transformation. And here's the brutal part. You can't enforce the standards you haven't identified. Like most coaching businesses at this level have never written down what good performance actually looks like for anyone in their business. So the standard is like sort of like vibes. You're just vibing along and you cannot scale on vibes, unfortunately, which means that you can't identify when your delivery is slipping before your reputation does. This is how people become scammers. And even if they have a big organic following, let's say that they're not stuck at 10 to 30 grand a month, let's say that they make a good 100 grand a month, but if the delivery is not locked in, they become a scammer. So anyways, how do we fix this problem? This is the big question. And the answer is, the fix is not hiring better people necessarily. Sometimes it is, mostly not. The fix is building a performance infrastructure. Define KPIs for every role, a review cadence, a feedback loop, and someone responsible for holding that standard consistently, whether that is you or a growth operator. The thing is that most people do not want to hand out a part of their business to an external person, but then again also are not ready to lead their sales team, to lead the operations on the standard that they need to lead them, right? Like just because you have a creative mind and can create good content, it doesn't mean that you can lead a team. It's different tasks. For leading, showing up is very different than just creating content and being creative. Both are extremely valuable, but they're different. So the solution, essentially, in our case here, is in every business I've worked with, is we installed this and the revenue went up within 60 days. Not because we changed the offer, not because we changed the content necessarily, but because we started executing the same strategy at a higher standard of consistency. If you were to ask Ollie over here, who has scaled to 60 then 75K per month, booking 8 calls in 3 days, 8.1K, all those types of things, I didn't really give that much to the guy that he didn't already know. What I gave him is a standard of execution, and then he saw how he could get to the next level. So this was problem 1. The next one is problem number 2. Delivery is completely dependent on the owner. This one is almost exclusively a problem I see with mindset coaches, high performance coaches, and personal development coaches, though it really shows up everywhere at some point, because at some point, every single coach is sort of like a mindset coach or a high performance coach. Like whatever coaching you do, you are basically a life coach because you need to make sure that your guys are performing. So here's the pattern. Like the owner is basically the offer. If you're the owner, you're the offer. You're selling yourself. You're not selling a system. You're not selling something that works. You work. Clients pay for access to them specifically, to your frameworks, to your energy, to your perspective. And in early stages, it's fine because it gives you a lot of leverage. People identify with people better, and with that personal touch, with this personal brand, it makes it easier for you to sell your stuff. But that's how you build proof of concept. You deliver personally, you get great results, you get testimonials, and you grow. The and you grow part is what a lot of people just miss out on completely. And between somewhere 10K, 20 grand a month, for some people it might come at 60 grand a month, the model starts to crack because growing the business, taking more clients is impossible. Delivery is already taking 30 to 40 hours a week in total, and most coaches at this stage just stay stuck. You either take on more clients and your quality drops, which starts to damage your reputation and testimonials, or you cap your revenue to protect your delivery. And most of them choose number 3, right? Like they cap their revenue and protect their delivery, but they never end up growing. And this makes their business eventually collapse as well. So for example, I was working with this study coach doing 20 grand a month who had genuinely built something special. He was generating strong results, incredible testimonials, a small but loyal audience. But when I actually audited the business, he was spending like 20 hours a week on direct delivery, which was maxing out his client delivery time. Remember, this guy helps other kids study better, which means 10 to 18, they need to take their calls after school, which also means that those 20 hours was all the time that he could allocate towards coaching calls because these kids that he was working with were only available in specific times. And this was taken up by calls, voice notes, program check-ins, etc. He was maxed out. He couldn't take on a single new client without his quality dramatically suffering. The problem wasn't his offer, it wasn't his audience, wasn't his content. It was that he had never separated what only he could do from what could be systematized and delegated. And when we actually rebuilt the delivery model, separating the proprietary IP work that only he could do from the process-driven support work that could be handled by a CSM, he went from spending 20 hours of delivery per week to 10. And the 10 was a max. He didn't need to spend more. He doesn't need to spend more than 10 hours on delivery right now, even if he takes on 50 more clients. Whereas before, those 20, if he wanted to take on a new client, it would have gone up. Right? So we went from a one-on-one model to a group structure with a course and with a CSM. These are completely different operational models. So this was problem number 2, and this is how we solved that problem in a real-life example. Let's get to problem number 3. We're almost at the end. Problem number 3, this is the most common one. Not having an acquisition system, just having acquisition activity. This is something everyone has, every business at this level, without exception, is facing this problem. Here's the difference between acquisition activity and acquisition system. Being in an active acquisition activity environment means that things that generate leads when you do them and stop generating leads when you don't. That is your entire system. It's entirely dependent on your energy and your consistency. When you're on, the leads come. When you're not, they do not. And this is not a problem in the beginning. Like, this is what you have to do. I remind you, you have to keep doing this over and over again. But what you also have to have, in order to be able to scale and predictably scale, you also need to have an acquisition system. So it's not just replacing the activity with a system. It is about layering a system on top of the activity so that you can capture more opportunity with a higher reliability. I'm almost rapping here, like that's crazy. But this is the acquisition system. It is a defined pipeline with predictable inputs and predictable outputs. You know exactly where your leads come from. You know the conversion rate at every stage, from first touch to booked call to show rate to close rate. And you know what happens when one stage drops. You know who is responsible for each part of the pipeline, and it runs without you being directly involved in every single step, right? It is a system. It is not just activity, not just random action. It is a system. So most coaching businesses at this level have never built the second thing. They have a collection of activities that sort of work, loosely strung together, with no visibility into which parts are actually working and which parts are failing. And when you don't know where your revenue is being generated with any position, you cannot improve it. You cannot identify where it's leaking. You can't scale things that are working because you don't know which things are working. This is the fix. If you install a tracking and reporting infrastructure that gives you real visibility into your acquisition pipeline, then you're able to see the numbers clearly and you can make improvements clearly as well. Now, if this sounds vague and you have never heard about what to do, what this is, I'm going to break it down very shortly. But essentially, here's an example of Brian over here, who, for example, he didn't track anything. He just came to us and was like, well, I'm hopping on these unqualified calls all the freaking time with people from India, and I took 12 calls and it's just not working for me. And therefore he developed this limiting belief that, well, he just couldn't improve his sales process. But the reality was he was not tracking. As soon as we implemented tracking, we realized the problems, that he was not qualifying people and that he didn't warm them up before the call happened. So the show rate was worse and the qualification rate was worse as well. As soon as we fixed the pre-call process, show rate went to 90% while qualification increased as well. And his revenue literally went from 2K to 21K, same lead flow, same everything. So same offer, same content, same setter, just a different standard of execution, a different pre-call process. Now, just quickly getting back to what do you even track? What even is a tracking reporting infrastructure? So in the appointment setting example, what that looks like is typically we have the front-end inputs like outbounds. We have how many new leads came in, right? Like how many times inbox checked, how many times did you check your inbox? And then from there we have the new combos started, new combos, then how many of those got actually proposed. So how many times did we propose a call? How many times did we book a call? And if there is a separate qualification logic on the call booking page, then there is also the qualified call number. And from here, you're able to see exactly, okay, what are the front-end inputs of the setter in terms of how many outbounds did they send, how many times did they check the inbox, and then how many new combos did they start, how many new calls got proposed. And here you can identify exactly at which part of the process things start breaking. In my other videos, you can see other tracking metrics for different parts of the process. But now you're probably thinking, and we have went over these three problems. Now you're probably thinking, okay, but if I just got better leads or fixed my funnel or rewrote my VSL, wouldn't that fix my revenue problem? Well, maybe for a month, the revenue bump is temporary. The underlying fragility remains, because if you're not fixing these problems, they will come up over and over again. These are one of those problems that you cannot just get rid of by fixing one thing one time. And this is why I've seen coaches invest 13K in ads and barely make anything. This is also why, transparently, I've worked with some coaches. We bumped up the revenue, and then when I left the team, because it just didn't make sense, there was no alignment going forward, they just dropped back to where they initially were, because the standard of execution, for example, was not there, and they didn't continually evolve their delivery system, or they didn't continually keep in touch with their acquisition system and ran their acquisition system like a proper system, right? As soon as I left the team, everything collapsed. Sometimes happens. It's how reality is. And it's not like if someone wastes 13K on ads, it's not because ads don't work, but it's because their operational infrastructure couldn't convert and retain the volume the ads were bringing in. The problems are not at the surface. They're typically structural. There is a deeper problem, like we have went over here. And here's what that looks like in practice. So actually fixing the core problems. There's four main problems that you can fix in your business right now: the acquisition layer, conversion layer, delivery, and team layer. So in acquisition layer, whenever I'm working with people, I install tracking across every stage of the pipeline from first touch to close. And I define what good performance looks like at every single stage. And I build a reporting cadence so you have real visibility into your numbers weekly and are staying in touch with what is happening in your business. In your conversion layer, I install setter KPIs whenever there is a new person handling any part of the process, like a setter, so that we know exactly what these numbers that I just had over there look like and where the problem is. Now, in the delivery layer, when I work with people, I typically audit what only the owner can do versus what can be systematized, and I rebuild the entire delivery model so that it's transformation-oriented, not owner-oriented. Now, the team layer, I install performance review cadences. So we define clear role-specific KPIs that people need to hit and expectations so that the culture is also being kept strong. So that is the audit. That is those three problems that I've seen with all these 7 coaching businesses that I've just shown you in the beginning. And every coaching business at 10 to 30 grand a month has at least one of them. No one is holding the standard, not for the setter, not for the team, not even for the owner. Number 2, delivery is entirely dependent on the owner's personal time and energy. Number 3, there's no acquisition system, only acquisition activity. And none of these have anything to do with your content or specific technical setup things. So if you're a B2C online coach making between 10 to 30 grand a month with a validated high ticket offer, extremely important. It's a validated offer and you have recognized your business is in at least 2 of these 3 problems, then I want to talk to you because I'm taking on a small number of coaching businesses as a growth operator. I come in, audit the full operation, build what needs to be built, and manage it until it is producing at the level it should be. Only businesses that are ready for infrastructure are a fit, not if you need more information, right? Link is in the description. Apply now. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next one. Subscribe in the meantime. Bye-bye.